Hey everybody, it is me, Lance Mikes here, the undead Viking of the board game world, coming to you with another one of these theoretically weekly little things that I post on both Gray Fox Games YouTube and also my own personal Undead Viking Videos YouTube channels. As always, if you're watching these and you have a comment or want to tell me what you think, please do so. And if you haven't already, hit the like, hit the subscribe, do the things or whatever. And if you aren't subscribed to, if you're like subscribed to Gray Fox Games and not subscribed to Undead Viking, subscribe over there and hit that little bell thing, and then back and forth, same way, whatever. You know how it goes. But all that aside, the reason I'm here to talk today. So, as you all, well, I mean, depending upon where you're watching or whatever, as you may or may not know, I haven't always worked in the board game industry. I worked a ton of different jobs growing up during my meandering 20s. Eventually, I got a job at US Bank. I don't have any problem with saying the name of the industry that I worked at. Got a job in banking. It was mostly customer focused at first, handling customer problems and issues. But as I worked at that location after many, many years, I got different opportunities. I became like a project manager. I became like an online help, typing up manuals type of things. Basically making the website that US Bank used internally. I was a workforce manager. That was probably my favorite job when I worked there. Basically, that was somebody that did all the planning and scheduling for everybody that was on the floor that was doing customer service. I worked in a giant call center that employed hundreds of people since COVID. And I met my wife when I was there. So, I mean, I worked for US Bank for almost 20 years. And I met my wife there. And so, I mean, like this house I live in, this is my family, my wife, everything. I mean, it happened because I worked at US Bank. US Bank was very good to me, and took care of me, took care of my family, and I have really no qualms about it. Occasionally, I go back. My wife still works at US Bank. Occasionally, I will drop off lunch for her every once in a while. I always run into somebody that I knew, and good conversations, really nice people there. Now, that isn't why I'm telling this story. I mean, basically, now a little over 10 years ago, I got the opportunity to leave that job and join the world of board game publishing. And the first job I had was with Tasty Minstrel Games. And I'm not really here to talk about Tasty Minstrel Games or anything like that, as the title of this video said. I'm here to talk about how did I get my job in board gaming, or more importantly, if you wish you worked in the board game industry, how do you go about getting a job in the board game industry? And I'm going to kind of break this down into several different ideas, and I hope this encourages you in a way, like because this is something you've always wanted to try or always wanted to be a part of. The chances of you being able to do it are out there, but it is a difficult nut to crack. So I'm just going to give you a few of my personal. In prior to this recording this today, I did reach out to a few people that I knew that worked in the board game industry. I kind of asked them how they, pulled it off themselves and how they got to that point. And and each one was unique in its own way, but a lot of them, there was a lot of same characteristics. My own personal experience and their experiences as well were all kind of along the same route. And so here you go. So how do you get into board game publishing? Now, the first one is probably, well, it's the easiest one in a lot of ways, but it's also really, really tough to do. And that is, well, just start your own board game publishing company. That was a very common one from a lot of people that I talked to. People that got to a certain point in their lives where, as a side project, as kind of a side hustle, they decided, you know what, I've had that idea for a board game in my head forever. Maybe I've shown it to a few different board game publishers and everybody said, no, no, thank you, no, thank you. and I've just gone ahead and decided to publish it myself. And whether it is something they took to crowdfunding or they just flat out published it themselves, they just went ahead and did it. And then the success of that, the learning process of doing that has escalated them to the point of them now being able to do it full time. And I should have mentioned that before. This is like if you want to work in the board game industry full time, how do you do it? So, you get to that point where it's like, oh, I want to work full time board game publishing, and because of the success, going back to become a board game publisher, because of their success in those games, they're able to, not do their first main job, and they're able to make the board game publishing their main job. And I say that's easy because, well, you just need to have an idea for a game or know somebody who has an idea for a game, and then you have to have the wherewithal to go ahead and try to be a publisher. Why it's not easy is usually you need a lot of capital to start up, and that isn't a given with anybody. It also has a lot of issues, I guess, not issues, I should say, but like it has a lot of situations where every single person that I knew that decided they're going to publish board games, I shouldn't say every single, but the vast, vast, vast majority, they got into it thinking it looked easy. And then they found out later it was really, really, really hard. Not so much hard to make the game, right? There's all these different manufacturers out there that'll make a board game. You can contact them, they'll give you quotes, you'll figure out if you can afford it, and you'll go ahead and make that game. But then actually making money off the game that you publish is the trick, right? So, and that was something that at one point I actually considered myself. Me and my friends had an idea that we were like, hey, let's make a board game. And we worked on this like weird fantasy conquest game for a better part of a year or so. And then it just died on the vine. As which I think a lot of those things happen. I think that happens a lot where it's like your real life and that everything going on in your real life kind of just takes over and you're just unable to do that. So that is the first way, I think, to get into the board game world. Now, you don't want to own a company, you don't want to have you don't have the capital or whatever, you don't want to do that. How do you go about getting a job with an existing company? So I'll kind of tell you my story, and it's all gonna, and I'm not gonna really mention any other people's stories just because I just don't think I'll let them tell their stories, but I'll mention mine. As you may or may not know, I have a YouTube channel. You're probably watching this on my YouTube channel. And that was my passion for a long, long time. It was, I want to make another video. I want to review this game. I want to talk about this game. I want to do this, that, and the other thing. And I still really like my YouTube channel. I still do, but it has obviously become completely secondary. It is truly a hobby for me at this point. It's just now a way for me to record thoughts like this, kind of point towards my job that I do, talk about Gray Fox Games as an outlet to kind of let people know about what we're working on. But also, it is like something where I have a weekly podcast thing that I do, a video blog, if you will. And I really enjoy spending my Wednesday evenings with my friends, talking about board games and life. And so it's just kind of become that, right? So that being said, I was doing my YouTube channel. It was, I mean, it was very successful. I don't say that to brag, basically because I was one of the very first people to actually have a board game YouTube channel. It was like me and Scott Nicholson and Tom Vassell and like Joel Eddy, a few others that have now kind of vanished off the face of the earth. But I mean, we were the only ones, right? And so when you're the only person making content, no matter how cruddy it was, and trust me, my stuff is not great. I mean, all those YouTube channels out now to talk about board games, they are so slick and so amazing. I mean, I can't even like comprehend being able to do what they do. I was able to just set up a camera and just talk and do a half-assed explanation of a game, and then people liked it, and I appreciated that. And I still get people come to me at conventions and recognize me and say hello, and I really and that's cool. I feel that. No, it's less and less, and that's fine, I mean, but for a while there, yeah, I had one of those big channels, if you will, and that was cool. But what happened is you go to conventions because you want to talk about board games, whatever. Me and Joel Eddy went to Gen Con, and this is, about 10 years ago or so. We went to Gen Con, and I was going to go to bed. I was like, hey, it's like super late. Let's just go to bed. And he's like, I got to go. I want to try out this new game somebody discovered. It's called Hanabi. That's all. So, yeah, right. And then, like, Hanabi had just come out, or somebody had just discovered it. And I said, who are you going to go play that with? And he said, oh, I'm going to go play it with Seth Jaffe. And I knew who Seth was because Seth worked at Tasty Minstrel Games. He was one of the founders of the company. And so I went over there, and I didn't really want to learn a new game or anything like that. But there is this very, very fun, interesting, funny guy to talk to. His name was Michael Mendez. And he was the owner, he was the other founder of Tasty Minstrel Games. And I just ended up sitting there and talking with him and talking with him and talking with him and talking with him. And it was like midnight, and all of a sudden it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And he had me like play test a few of these like games people had given him to play test, and I gave him my thoughts on it. And then it was just one of those things where he said we should keep in touch. And I was like, cool. And I thought that was really nice. I met this guy. I think I had reviewed maybe one or two Taste Minstrel games prior to that. And then after that, he started reaching out to me to do videos for him. And we would talk on the phone every once in a while. And so he just basically became a friend. And I mean, no, this is more than 10 years ago now, because I mean, it was 10 years ago or so that he hired me. But so it was at least maybe a year or two before that. And then it was just one of those things where I ran into him every once in a while, and I would just half jokingly say, when are you going to give me a job? And I just kind of did that. And then one day he finally just said, are you serious? You really want to come work for me? And I said, yeah, I would love to work for you. I mean, as long as the situation works out. And prior to that, though, like I was always like he would call me up and give me ideas. He would give me his ideas about stuff and ask me my opinion. He would have me do write-ups for him. He would have me do video work for him. He would have me do lots of things, and I just did it because he was my buddy and he was my friend. And then eventually, what it was is that like he liked what I did, and he said, "I really want you to come on and do that stuff for me. I want you to like be an idea guy. I want you to make videos for us. I want you to be like basically the face of the company, be the liaison, because he didn't really like that. He didn't really like having to talk to people about stuff. And he said, I want you to be like kind of a project manager for him. And so that's what happened. I got hired by Tasty Minstrel Games, and that's what I did for them for many years. And until basically the company no longer existed. Well, I know I was let go about a year before the company exists. And that's when I started working for Gray Fox Games. But going back to all that, how did I get that job? Well, I went to conventions. I made people know who I was. I had a successful YouTube channel, so people knew who I was. And more importantly, what it was is that I kind of became friends with people that were publishers. And then I made myself available to them to work for them, to do things for them, to take on certain aspects of certain projects that they had time. And I did it for nothing. I did it for absolutely $0. And I because I just really liked it and I really loved doing it. And it was just something I could do. My kids were young at that time. So they went to bed early, and it would be one of those things where I would do it to wind down the day, and just kind of relax, have, watching TV, but typing stuff up and what have you. And so I became a valuable commodity to somebody who then said, I really want you to do this for me full time because I can see that you can do this for me. And I've heard this about a lot of other different industries as well, where if you want to be part of it, you have to show an interest and you have to show excitement, and you also have to work super, super cheap or for free to do that. I've heard like basically if you want to work in broadcasting, whether it is TV or movies or things like that, I've heard people like you just hang out and are willing to do whatever it takes to just have your foot in the door and to get that. particular spot. Now, when I went to college, I mean, I went to college for English and like with a little minor or whatever in philosophy and literature or whatever. So, I mean, other than being able like to do video stuff like this and talk and not having any problem, like I've been told like your ability to be able to talk to people or with no fear or whatever, like having a YouTube channel and not being worried about sounding dumb or whatever is like a talent. And I've always had that. So I guess I should be thankful I have that. And I guess technically I'm well read and I like to write. So that's kind of like the things that I bring to the table. I I can I can make videos and again I don't have to sound stupid when I do them. And I apologize if this sounds like I'm bragging or anything like that. There are so many things about me that are negatives that I can't count on or whatever. But I basically what I'm trying to say is as um I have things that I'm good at that are valuable in the board game world. Plus, I've at this point played thousands of board games and I know what works, I know what doesn't, I know what's fun, I know what isn't. Even if it's a type of game I don't like, I can tell if it's fun. And I really feel like I'm good at that. And so and that just comes with experience. And I'm sure most of you, if you've played lots and lots of board games and you've played lots and lots of a different varied selection, you also could probably very well tell people what is or is not good. But the other big thing, when you start working, and there are going to be board game companies out there that have lots and lots of people to work for them. Tasty Missile Games did not have a lot of people working for them. Gray Fox Games did not have a lot of people working for them. And so you have to be available to do anything at any time. That's why I like on my signature when I send things out for Gray Fox Games, it says the wearer of many hats. And because that's what I do. If it's running a project, I do that. If it's proofreading rule books, I do that. If it's running playtesting, I do that. If it's, it's whatever. It's whatever is needed of me, I'm willing to do. And if I don't know how to do it, I'm willing to learn how to do it. I learned how to program a Discord server with all these like things. And I mean, it's not nearly as good as I want it to be, but I got it to the point where it needed to be so it works. And so like I run like the Gray Fox Discord server, stuff like that. And I realize this second one has been kind of all over the place. But if you want to work in the industry, I believe just sending an email to somebody saying, "Hey, I really like a job in the industry," isn't going to do it. You have to have a face to a name. You have to become friends with people. You need to show people who you are, your passion for the hobby, and what you can bring to the table. And admittedly, it's tough. It's tough to do that, which brings me to my third point. And my third point is uh, you just have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to be lucky. I do believe that a lot of stuff in life is predestined. That like you just happen like, and I got that from my dad. My dad is a big believer in fate. He believes that like certain things happen to you that just like yeah, I mean, and you can explain it away as coincidence or whatever, but it's just like, why were you in this one spot at this one time and had that conversation? Go back to my friend Michael, who I still talk to on a semi-regular basis. I was gonna go to bed, but then Joel said, "Hey, I'm gonna go check this out," and I was like, "All right, I'll go with." And I went with, and I ended up sitting down and talking to Michael, and we had and we made a great friendship from that starting conversation. Uh, if I hadn't done that, what would have happened? Who knows? Maybe I would have met him some other time. You never can tell. But my whole point to the situation is that you can't ever know when that opportunity is going to hit, and you can't ever know when it's going to happen. And if it's going to happen, I guess if you believe in fate, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen regardless of anything you do. But you just have to be lucky. You have to be in a spot where somebody needs a person to do X and you are willing to do X and you happen to be the first person to get in line at that time. So how do you get lucky? I mean, that old saying of the harder I work, the luckier I get. Well, I mean, make yourself known. go to conventions. If a publisher has a Discord server, be a vocal Discord person that is willing to help out, willing to do things. Like that's the whole point too. I mean, it's like it's something where uh you have to put time in. Yeah, I mean it isn't like walking out outside of a store and you find a penny on the ground. You happen to get lucky that way. It has to be a situation where you're putting forth the effort and you're creating something and you're creating something about you that is going to be interesting. Um, and and that's and the people that I talk to, how did you get your job in the industry? I mean, that's how it does. I mean, whether it was volunteering at conventions to for publishers to sit at their demo booths and show off a game over and over again. If it is about you offering your services to proofread a rule book for free just to go over it and doing a good job with it and starting that engagement process. I mean, that is it. And trust me, I've heard from a lot of people that are saying I've been trying to get a job in the industry for years now, and it just isn't happening. It's not you. It is literally the fact that there just aren't that many jobs out there. I recently posted that I've been working in the industry for like 10 years, and somebody said, "Do you realize how lucky you are?" And I was like, and I had to take a moment. I'd say, wow, I really am lucky. I am really really lucky that I am. Now, I'm gonna have two caveats to this whole thing. And if you made it this far, these are my two caveats to this whole process. Caveat number one is um, I highly a long time ago, I read a book when I had this idea that I wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to write. That was going to be my job. I remember reading a book and it said if you want to be it was like how to become a writer. And it was a sci-fi fantasy author wrote a book about how to become a writer, and it was a fairly successful sci-fi fantasy author. And one of the first things he said is be married. Uh, he said, because you are going to be very poor, and you need somebody else that's going to be making money, so you don't starve to death. And um, I'm not saying that you have to be married. I'm not saying you have to have a partner, but I can truthfully tell you that my wife, who still works for U.S. Bank, is extremely successful, and so that helps out a lot because I don't get paid chicken feed for what I do, but it's it is what it is. I could comfortably live on what I make if I was just a single person, and I was doing my own thing. I definitely could probably I wouldn't have a house as large as I do. I would not have the ability to give the opportunities to my children as much as I do. I definitely would without my wife and without a second income. The second caveat is uh as I said before, it is very, very hard. And one of the things that kind of stinks about being in publishing is that you really never have a day off. Um, it is one of the like it doesn't matter what happens, like you will be thinking about board games all the time. You'll be thinking about your job all the time. And the thing is that my Shane and Josh, my bosses, they are always thinking about the job. Vacations are few and far to come by. I mean, yeah, I get to go to conventions, but I'm working at those conventions all the time. I mean, it isn't like I have a lot of downtime on those things. Um, so it is a job that it isn't something where you clock in and you work 40 hours and then you go home and you're done. Uh, there is no true, paid, 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off vacation that you earn over there. It is not a corporate lifestyle. So know that going in that you are going to be sacrificing quite a bit as far as the structure of a normal job. I shouldn't say normal because it is a normal job, but I mean, you're going to be sacrificing some of the structure of corporate life to be able to do what you do. But is it worth it? Absolutely. I've never been as happy working as that I'm working this job. When some people ask me what it's like, and invariably it always comes up, people say, "What do you do for a living?" Because it's that standard question, right? That people ask. And some days I just say publishing. I just say, because it's easier just to not, but some days I just say, well, I'm going to answer that question. It's going to provoke other questions. And so if you have any, let me know. It's no big deal. And then I tell them what I do, and it provokes questions. And that's fine. It's kind of neat to talk about it for a little bit. And I mean, and who doesn't like having, the focus on them for a little while? But, it is something that, I've always said, my worst day, and there are worse days, trust me, my worst day working in board game publishing is still better than the best day I ever had, working for a giant financial institution. So there you go. Well, I mean, I hope that hasn't scared you away. If you wish that you could work in this world, look at it and go for it, right? And that's the only other thing I can suggest is that if it's something that you think that you really, really want to do and you think you'd be good at it, chase it and see where you can see if you can find it. Because, like I said, the last decade of my life, as far as vocationally, has been the last decade of my life has been pretty awesome. It's probably been the best decade of my entire life. And part of that has to do with the fact of the job that I have and uh, the satisfaction that I get from being a board game publisher. So, comments, questions, whatever, go ahead and post them below. I'd love to see them. I'll happily answer anything that you ask. And until next time, this is the end of Viking. Lance Meister. See you later.